Hi, I'm Jen. In August last year, I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a rare type of bone cancer in my upper jaw. So I was thrust immediately into a world of chemotherapy. Great fun. Mine was quite extensive, MAP chemotherapy, so it was Monday to Friday, 24 hours a day, and I would do that for 3 weeks, and then I would have 2 weeks off. I say off, sometimes I ended up in A&E. Good fun. But that cycle would happen 6 times over the course of about 7 months. And then I went in for surgery to remove the cancer, most of the top of my jaw, behind my cheek up to my eye socket and the back of my nose. That was then reconstructed out of bone from my shoulder blade, along with skin and muscle, which is just amazing. Medicine will never cease to amaze me. And still a work in progress. I'm waiting for dental implants, but hopefully that'll happen eventually, sooner rather than later. But when I was first diagnosed, I started blogging. A lot of that was to keep my family and friends in Australia caught up with what was going on, and my family and friends here. But when I was first diagnosed, people would say to me, "Oh, you're so strong, you're so brave." And I just remember thinking, I'm not strong or brave. I don't feel either of those things. All I'm doing is, getting treated for my cancer. I'm just trying to stay alive. I don't think there's anything particularly that brave about that. And this language really bothered me. And it's taken me a while to get my thoughts together as to why it bothered me so much. I just want to talk a bit about the language we use around cancer and illness in general, but I will focus on cancer. So I actually have a friend who has type 1 diabetes, and she gets this too. She has to inject herself a lot, something like 7 or 8 times a day, which is a lot more than I realised before I knew her. But she gets it from people saying, "Oh, you're so strong, you're so brave. I couldn't do that." Well, I think you could. The other option is dying. Would you find that easier? But I think this language, aside from feeling a bit odd about it, I think this language is quite problematic. There's nothing it's not like a strength and weakness thing dealing with illness. You're quite weak a lot of the time, actually. Lying in a hospital bed with my face swollen out to here, hardly even knowing who I am or what I'm doing or what the hell is going on. That's not someone who's strong or brave. That's someone who's just had their life turned upside down and is feeling pretty damn shit. But I think, a lot of the time we'll talk about things that we're struggling with, side effects that are difficult, for example, and people will say, "Oh, stay strong." Like, well, I'm not being weak by talking about my side effects. It's just reality of the disease. There's a problem with also people saying, "Oh, be positive." I think generally as a society, I guess, we want things to be good all the time. We're obsessed with things, everyone has to be happy all the time. It's not okay to sometimes just be okay. How are you? We always want to hear, "I'm great." No one actually wants to hear, "Well, I've had a bit of a hard day, started throwing up this morning, but I made it. I made it in today." So I think this focus on always being positive makes it quite hard for people to really communicate what they're going through. And then I think also it can make it even more isolating when you get cancer and you are struggling with all these things that are happening, and you look at other people who have gone through it and they look like they're having a great time, because that's what people want to see. and it's just not the reality. And I think it kind of leads people to be suffering in silence because they're too scared to actually talk about the things that are bothering them. And because as soon as they are, they're told to just be positive, and it's almost as if everything we're struggling with is just immediately dismissed. So that in itself is quite a problem, but the obsession with being positive extends even further. And I've got friends who are dying. Their cancer is terminal. And you go downhill, basically. It's just a matter of managing things for as long as possible. And it gets to the point where you can't manage things anymore. You're up to your last treatment option, or you've exhausted all your treatment options. And that's just the reality of it. And these are conversations we need to have. We need to tell people that this is the reality of getting cancer. 1 in 2 people will get cancer. Unfortunately, we're all going to come across it, and it's not fluffy. It's not pink ribbons, and it's not great fun. And I think it's a real struggle for people who are dying when they talk about the fact that they have no treatment options, and still they get told by people to be positive. I am positive, but also this is the reality, And unfortunately, I'm sorry if this is a shock to anyone, but cancer cells don't care how positive you are. They don't stop rapidly dividing just because you wake up and smile at yourself and say it will all be okay. It doesn't quite work like that. And this obsession with always being positive kind of leads to people not having the conversation they need to have. Especially when you do get towards that point where death is not far away and you need to start working out, funeral and leaving, whatever sort of legacy you need to, whether it's to children or friends or partners or family, tying up loose ends. And a lot of the time people who are trying to have those conversations are told, oh, no, don't want to talk about that. Let's just be positive. And it's all good to be positive, but unfortunately, people still die. And that's another thing. People die. When cancer is getting, in its later stages, people will be dying. They will not be lost. We do not lose people. They will not turn up behind the couch when you move it to get a pen that you drop there in 6 months' time. They did not pass away. There is no passing. Passing is what happens when you drive by a beach. You pass by the beach. When people die of cancer, they die. We kind of had this denial of death almost in society. People don't want to talk about it. And I get it, it is so hard. No one wants to die. No one wants anyone to die. But dying is an important part of life. In fact, dying gives life meaning. If we never died, we'd never sort of have any motivation to get anything done in our time. The fact that we die gives life meaning. And by not describing it in its real terms, we're kind of denying it. We're putting it in a corner and just ignoring it, hoping it never happens. And this is sort of what we do, people get to the end of their life, and we, even old people who are dying, at the end of their 80 years or whatever, we put them in a nursing home, put them over there, and they can die in that corner. And it's really worrying. Kind of need to get better at this, and as long as we keep saying we lost people or they passed away, we are still denying that death happens, and we need to get better at this as a society. When you get cancer, you get a whole range of responses. One which shocked me, and has shocked me even more to realise that I'm not the only person who got this. It seems quite common. There will always be someone when you announce your diagnosis, however you choose to do that, someone who says, oh no, cancer. My mum died of cancer. My auntie had cancer and she died. I'm sorry for your loss. I think it's quite common when you get cancer that you end up having to console other people and manage their own problems that they have around cancer, which is hard. One of the great things that come with getting cancer. The other thing that you get is that people don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. And friends that you thought, might reach out to you, you never hear from them ever again. And I get it. Cancer is big. It's scary. Everyone, maybe not everyone yet, but eventually everyone will have had a brush with it somehow, whether themselves or someone close to them. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. We really need to get better at talking about it. I mean, I get that people don't want to. People are dealing with their own problems. Someone close to them has died. They can't yet come to terms with the fact that you also have it. And they just want to package it up, put it away, and pretend it doesn't exist. Okay, fine. But, words are all we've got. They're the most important thing, really, when you strip everything back. Communication and words, that's what we have. And it's really hard when people disappear. And I get it. It's hard to know what to say. Even when you have cancer, you don't always know what to say. And we don't make it easy either. Half the time we want to talk about it non-stop. Talk, cancer. And the rest of the time we want to ignore it and pretend it hasn't happened, and let's have a normal life and go out for a drink and pretend everything is fine. So I get it. It's hard to kind of judge what you're meant to say to someone who is dealing with this. I think the main thing is to listen to the person and listen to what they are saying, what kind of things that they're talking about, whether they want to talk about it or not. And when someone gets cancer, don't say nothing. Tell them you don't know what to say. Just say, I'm so sorry, this is shit. The wording around cancer, the language that we use, is also quite personal. People differ in the language they want to use. And a big one that goes around and round on people being on both sides of the fence is fighting, and the battle, and being a warrior. I think this is it's an action, right? It's moving forward. I think when people are diagnosed with cancer, they want to, battle stations ready, right, get going, let's fight this, let's do it, we got this, we're going to beat this thing, it's positive, and I get that. I don't think I ever used that terminology. I felt a bit odd about it, but I know a lot of people, it is sort of, it's a positive thing for them to think about fighting their cancer and overcoming it. It wasn't until I made friends with people who had terminal cancer that I really started to understand where the problem with this language is. Firstly, a fight implies an even playing field. There's nothing even about cancer. And what happens when you start going downhill and you're going to die of cancer? Is it because you didn't fight hard enough? Because you weren't positive enough? People who live and don't die of cancer, they didn't fight any harder than people who died. Everyone fought the same amount. Everyone tried their best, tried their absolute best to stay alive. And when people die, they're not losers. They did not lose a battle. They didn't fail at their battle, at their fight. It is just horrible to think of it in this way. I mean, my heart bleeds for the poor people with terminal cancer who are being told that they're losing a battle. Putting the onus on the patient to fight themselves, to cure themselves, is just ridiculous. It's not up to us, and it's not our own personal failure when we don't respond to chemo, or when, the cancer progresses. It's not anyone's failure when they die. It's just how it goes. There is so much luck involved. You either draw the short straw or you don't. Of course, there's a lot to do with, early detection, so much on that, and the amazing work that our oncologists and surgeons do, of course. But they are the ones that fight. Researchers fight, leave it to them. When people have cancer, just let them take their drugs, have their chemo and relax. Leave the fighting to the doctors and the advocates, It's just so disheartening to keep seeing this kind of language. I know when Rachel Bland died recently of breast cancer, a couple of the newspapers said she lost her battle with cancer, and my heart broke. She particularly was a person who said, never say that I lost my battle, and my goodness, she did not. No one who I know who has died of cancer is a loser or a failure. They are the most amazing people, not because they have cancer, but in spite of it. The things that people do, even when they are struggling, to try and make things better for other people. The compassion of a lot of these people who I know who die from cancer. They are not losers. They are not failures. It was not a battle. Their body was ravaged by this horrible disease. This language has to stop. I just want to finish by saying that I'm not personally blaming anyone for the things that they say or the language they use at all. This is not anyone's fault. It's just that we have not been having these conversations up until quite recently. There's not the awareness out there. For so long, cancer and illness has been, kind of pushed to the side and kind of kept as a bit of a secret or a shame thing, and we're just coming out now and being really quite vocal about the things that we're going through. So, we're at the very start of challenging this kind of language. And yeah, anyone who uses the wrong words, it's fine. I'm not angry at people. I think we just need to do a lot better with educating everyone and the media, and making sure that newspaper articles are not saying that people lose their battles. Yeah, I mean, people don't lose their battles with a heart attack, do they? Why do they lose their battle with cancer? Oh, it's horrible. So yeah, I think we need to work a lot harder at listening to the language that people who are struggling themselves use, and just talking about it, talking about everything. That's really the way that we come to terms with these things and the way that we move forward. Thank you.